So happy that you're with us this evening. I'm Monica Ritas, president of the Democratic Women's Club of Florida. This is our final training video, training webinar for 2022. The training committee has done a phenomenal job this year of making sure that they provided training for our members based on queries to our members, to our presidents, to our region chairs, and of course to the board. Want to congratulate them on a phenomenal job. I want you to know that we've just had fantastic feedback and we're looking forward to the work that you're starting next year. This is the final webinar and we will have our first in January, and I will tell you a little bit about that at the end of this webinar. But I'm excited about this because we have had a number of clubs pick up ActBlue over the last year and a half, and there are an amazing array of ways that you can use it. And so we thought it prudent to bring an expert from ActBlue in to speak with you this evening. I'll turn it over to the chair of the training committee, Maureen McKenna, and she'll tell you a little bit about it. Maureen?
Thank you, Monica. President Ritas, I want to welcome everybody today to our final webinar for 2022, hosted by the Democratic Women's Club of Florida's Training Committee. I'm going to ask that if you have questions for our presenter tonight, to please go to the Q&A tab, not the chat tab, but the Q&A tab, and ask your questions. And make sure that you include your name when you ask the question so that we can address your questions specifically. We will be answering questions after the presenter's initial presentation. At the end, we'll be answering questions. At this time, I am going to be introducing our speaker. Nisa Dang, who goes by the pronoun they, them, is a Democratic politics and elections associate who works with campaigns and organizations in Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, and North Carolina. Nisa joined ActBlue in February 2018. Since then, Nisa has conducted countless trainings for over 1,000 Democrats and progressives on how to launch strong grassroots fundraising programs. Before coming to ActBlue, Nisa worked on civil rights and immigration issues both at home and abroad. The DWCF Training Committee is now proud to introduce Nisa Dang from ActBlue. Thank you, Nisa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Maureen, for that introduction. I will not need to make my own. I really appreciate y'all joining me. I know it's late for y'all. It is simply 5 p.m. for me here in Colorado. But with all of that in mind, I'm going to try to make this as thorough and concise as possible. Things that I don't know if I've excelled at, but I'm sure you'll let me know. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so y'all can see the materials that have been lovingly prepared. See, I struggle with this every single time. And awesome. Can y'all see that? Perfect. Okay, so who am I? Maureen just gave an amazing introduction, so I won't go into the boring details of my life. But I wanted to say that I'm here substituting for my colleague Jose, who's super amazing. I'm sure you've gotten an email from him sometime over the last few months, but if you haven't, trust me, you will soon. He's very persistent. He wishes he could be here today, but something came up, so I'm just here to step in and give y'all this training and talk a little bit about digital fundraising. So a little bit of housekeeping. If y'all have questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A. I'll make sure to get to them at the end of this presentation. I'm a pretty long-winded person, though I pretend that I'm not. So I'm going to try to keep on track with today's training, give y'all all the information you need without keeping you after. And in order to do that, I really just have to focus on questions at the end. I'll also be posting Jose's contact information at the end of the training, so you will have that, and I'm sure that an email will go out later as well with his contact information in case you have any questions. And if you're interested in the training slides to review them at your own pace, I can go ahead and make sure that Jose has them and can send them to y'all as well. Awesome. So before we get into our icebreaker, and yes, there will be an icebreaker, I wanted to take a moment and share a land acknowledgement with you all. As we continue to organize our communities, land acknowledgements are a small way for us to take care of our land and its history. I'm currently speaking to you all from my home in Boulder, Colorado. Wow, can't even say that, which is Arapaho and Osheti. Wow, Shakowin territory. Sorry, it's just really hard for me to say all of these names without caffeine in my body. I've been drinking tea, it's not been going well. If you haven't already and are interested in doing so, I recommend checking out nativeland.ca to figure out which treaties and tribes are associated with your community. It's definitely been great learning for me as an organizer. So, our icebreaker. For this icebreaker, you will drop into the chat your name, your pronouns, and what your favorite breakfast foods are. I'm going to try not to peek at the answers because that will just distract me and throw me off even more. But my favorite breakfast food currently is a chorizo and mushroom omelet with avocado, on top. It really just changes day by day for me. Sometimes I'll just go with a smoothie. It's not my favorite, but it gets the job done. So very curious to hear what you all like to enjoy for breakfast, which is the most important meal of the day. So feel free to share all of that information. Hopefully you all know each other already, but if not, this will give you a great way to connect and pass silent judgment. So moving on, we have a jam-packed session today. I'm going to be going into quite a few things. I'll be talking about ActBlue and small dollar donors. Hopefully y'all know what ActBlue is already, but if not, no worries. I will be sharing all about us. We'll be talking about digital fundraising. So this is going to be an overview of what all you need to get started and how to actually proceed with digital fundraising. We'll also talk about building your online list. This is something that was pretty challenging for folks to grasp in the beginning before the pandemic, but now that the pandemic has, hit our communities, I think a lot more people are more open to understanding what it is to build your online list, and it sounds a lot less scammy, which is great for me because then I get to talk about how you can engage with your communities in a way that's much more accessible for folks who can't show up every single day. And then we'll talk about making the ask. This is going to be a shortened version because I'm hoping that Jose can come back in January or February and give y'all an in-depth training on emails and virtual asks specifically. And then we'll talk about ActBlue's tools and services, what we offer, and how to build all of our different features into your current strategy. Then we'll wrap up, I'll share additional resources, and then we'll get to your questions. So what is ActBlue? This is a question that when I first started, I got a lot of really interesting answers at like the in-person trainings that I did. But after the last 5 years and the boom that we've seen in digital fundraising, which I'll be talking about shortly, I think a lot of people are more familiar with what ActBlue is and what other organizations and companies like ActBlue do. To put it simply, we're a nonprofit organization that builds digital fundraising tools for Democrats and progressive campaigns and organizations. So basically, we're a payment processor that helps organizations connect to the communities and that helps supporters connect to the causes that they care about. I'm going to be talking a lot about small dollar donors throughout the course of this training because at ActBlue, we deeply believe that they build people-powered movements. Beyond being a tongue twister, what this really means is that small dollar donors are the same people who show up on election day. They're the same people who knock doors, who register voters in the sweltering heat and humidity. They do data entry, they drop off water, and then they show up to town halls and cause a ruckus if things aren't going the way that folks promised. So to put it simply and mildly, small dollar donors are the people we prioritize because they help us build a pipeline towards victory that starts from the grassroots. And they are also the same people who hold elected officials accountable to the people and the people's interests. So all of that said, I wanted to talk a little bit about the momentum that we've seen at ActBlue over the last few years. Now, 2022 is ongoing. We have several runoffs. If I look tired, that is why. I'm sure y'all understand. But I wanted to talk a little bit about 2020 numbers. So to put all of this in perspective, I'm just going to highlight two numbers. The first is the 5.1 billion total dollars that were raised in the 2020 cycle. So that's from January 2019 until December 2020. And to put this into even more perspective, when I got to ActBlue in 2018, we had just raised $3 billion. So it took us 14 years to raise $3 billion, and then it took us 2 years to raise $5 billion. So these are really, really huge numbers, and I'm not a numbers person. So for me to understand this, I think about the vast number of people we've had basically donate to ActBlue for the first time ever. So if you see another number on the screen that I want to highlight is the 72% of donors who are first-time givers. These are people who are giving through ActBlue for the first time ever to the campaigns and organizations and causes that they really care about. Now, I very easily get overwhelmed by numbers, but when I look at this, the meaning that I extract from it is that even though it may seem like folks are really tired and don't want to engage and are feeling burned out, which is super understandable, there are so many people out there who are looking to get involved for the first time ever. And so if you're sitting here and you're thinking to yourself, wow, we have really lofty fundraising goals, I don't know how we're going to reach them, I'm going to talk a little bit about what it looks like to expand beyond your current network. So digital fundraising, what is it? Why do we do it? So why digital? Digital is amazing because it helps you bring your message directly to your supporters. So during the course of the pandemic, we saw that it was very challenging to really engage with people because everyone had to stay at home and protect their communities. So a lot of the groups that I worked with over the last 4 or 5 years who were very resistant about switching to a digital program started reaching out and asking for tips and best practices. And we found that folks were actually really responding to digital because it's not like you're reinventing the wheel. It's just improving upon a strategy that you already use. So if you're someone who's ever posted on Facebook or Twitter about something that's going on in your community, to invite people to an event or a town hall, you are already a digital organizer. So what we're going to do today is talk more about the different tools that you can add to your arsenal to make sure that you're engaging with as many people as possible. So what do you need to get started? This is a hefty looking list, I will acknowledge, but chances are you already have a few, if not all of these things working right now. So the first thing on the list is the CRM, or Customer Relationship Manager. This is basically jargon that means that you need something, a program, a spreadsheet that tracks who the people in your network are, what their contact information is, and the level of support that they've given to your work. So I do a lot of organizing on the side when I have time, and I like to use a spreadsheet to track that information. So that spreadsheet would be my CRM. It gives me a quick snapshot of what all is going on in my community. Then you have a fundraising platform. I'm obviously very biased. I will recommend ActBlue until I am blue in the face. But if you're looking for a fundraising platform and you're still not sold on ActBlue, here are a few things that you should keep in mind when you're doing your research. Your fundraising platform should ideally help you accept contributions from your supporters. That's like very basic, but it should also make it really easy for you to collect information that you need for reporting, for keeping track of who all is in your network, so on and so forth. You're also going to want something that is easy to use both for you and for your donor. Then you're going to want to have a caucus or club email address, something that is specific to your organization. I personally, shamefully, have 11 email addresses. 9 of those are spam emails, but 2 of those are very important. One is for work and one is personal. And it's really important that you keep those separate, because a lot of times when I'm getting support requests through our queue, I will see that folks are missing emails that were sent with tutorials and resources and things like that. The last thing you want to do, I mean, if you miss out on my emails or Jose's emails, fine, but you don't want to miss out on emails from people who are wanting to get engaged with your work. So just make sure that you're keeping that separate. You're also going to want a mass mailer, depending on how big your list is. If you have like 10 people that you need to send information to every week, then maybe you can forego this. But I personally use a mass mailer that I really like because it allows me to connect with people. I think I have a list of like 100 people that I email for my newsletter. Um, and a good mass mailer will not only allow you to send emails to hundreds of people, it'll let you schedule those emails so that you're not up at 5 a.m. to send an email that lands at the top of someone's inbox. Please don't do that. And it will also provide analytics. You can see whether or not people are opening your emails. Are they marking you as spam, which would personally hurt my feelings? How is your email program doing? So on and so forth. You're also going to want to have a website or a social media platform or both. It just really depends on where your people are congregating. If most of your people are on Twitter, then maybe you want to have a very active Twitter account that shares all of the updates and like event invites that you have going on. If most of your people are on Facebook, then that's probably where you're going to want to host discussions and again, share all of those calls to action. And a website is really useful, which we'll get into in the next section, because it allows people who are familiar with your work to engage for the very first time ever, even if they don't have a Facebook or a Twitter account. And take a little breath. Okay, so in this next section, I'm going to talk about building your list online. As you continue to build your skills as a digital organizer, something that should be at the forefront of your mind is how are you reaching people in and beyond your community? So we're going to go over 3 specific methods. We're going to talk about websites, social media, and virtual events. Each of these methods will just expand your list in a different way, and I'm also going to talk about the best practices associated with them. So websites. Websites are what I consider a digital door hanger. That's the field organizer in me coming out. It's a way for you to connect with people who know of and are interested in engaging with your work. When they head to your website, they'll get all of the information they need, whether that's your contact information, your Facebook, your meetings that are happening, your event calendar. The thing that you want to keep in mind here is if you have any calls to action, they should be above the fold, meaning that they should be at the very top of your website where they are accessible. And for calls to action, I recommend keeping it simple because ultimately you want to be able to reach folks directly. So you should encourage folks to sign up for your newsletter or email list or what have you, and then you should encourage them to donate. So a donate button and a sign up button are key. Now, I've been working in digital for almost 5 years, and something that I want to just make really clear is that if you do have a website or are thinking about creating one, that you should make sure that the font is as accessible as possible. In my first year at ActBlue, I came across this website that I'm sure had great information on it, but I couldn't read it because it was an all black background and all of the font was in dark blue or red italics, and there were no calls to action. And it was like my first month on the job, and I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to reach out to this person. You know, I'm someone who spends my entire life on the internet and I'm struggling. So just think about whether or not people can actually see what's on your website and whether it's easy to navigate. Now, if you've been staring at your website for about 4 hours and you can no longer tell, I recommend asking a team member to step in and give the website another look. This is very important because then you can make sure that people can read your website and connect with you. So, social media. This is another hot ticket, hot button item that I get asked about a lot, especially pre-pandemic. Honestly, I would say I was drilled at every training about social media. I got a lot of questions about how often you should post, what you should be posting, what you shouldn't be posting. And as someone who's terminally online and who also works in digital, my biggest recommendation when it comes to social media is to make sure that you're using it in a way that expands your reach rather than just sharing information without a call to action. So it's a fine line to tread, but really what you want to think about is this something that's going to bring people into my work? So am I inviting people to an event? Am I asking them to donate? Am I sharing information and asking them to sign a petition? What call to action do I have attached to this post? I've worked with a lot of candidates and a lot of campaigns and organizations that spend what I think is too much time on social media where people aren't congregating. And a lot of the posts seem to skew more personal than to be related to the work directly. So if you are someone who is very interested in building out your social media, like audience and engagement and platform, just make sure that you're doing it in a way that welcomes people into the fold. If you have any questions about that, feel free to drop in the Q&A and I will make sure to get to it. Oh, the other thing here with social media is you want to make sure that you're directing people to visit the website, visit your Facebook page, visit wherever it is people are actually congregating. Have them sign up for your email list so that you can actually reach out to them directly. With social media, it's really hard to track engagement because while Twitter will tell you how many impressions your post had, it won't tell you who exactly is looking at your post, which is really important when you're doing community building grassroots work. Online events are also really, really important. They give existing supporters new ways to engage with your work. And also, if your supporters are really vibing with the event, they'll probably bring new people to the event as well. So you can grow your network that way. The key here is when you're running a virtual town hall or a party meeting or inviting supporters to virtual office hours with your candidate or a slate of candidates that you're supporting, make sure that you collect their email addresses and thank them for coming and ask them for a donation to support your work. Follow-up is super key. Even if someone isn't able to come to your event, you'll want to thank them anyway for their interest. And then in the next email, ask them to donate to your organization. Now, testing your tools is very, very important. I had a training that I did in 2020 that was for a national audience, and for some reason, our platform basically puttered out in the middle of the training, and we had hundreds of people on the call. And I was having a panic attack. I don't think I hit it very well. We had to switch platforms in the middle of the training, and the training team handled that perfectly. And I'm hoping something like that doesn't happen to you, but just in case, make sure you have a plan B and keep your phone nearby and use it as a hotspot if needed. I'm still shaken from that experience. So just make sure that you have your plan B and you have different ways to test whatever tool you're using for your online event. All right, so we're going to talk about making the virtual ask. Like I mentioned before, this is going to be a shorter version of the actual training. The actual training involves an exercise, goes really into detail. And the reason that I'm making this shorter is because I think Jose will give a lot of actually very relevant examples and context. And he'll also probably do the email portion of this training, which I've removed. Just because I think, again, he'll have more relevant examples and can speak more directly to what the email program in Florida looks like. Do I have points of comparison? No, because I really think that every single state is so different. All of that said, I will be talking specifically about making a strong ask and what that looks like, because I want y'all to walk away from this feeling more confident than when you walked in. And I'm sure everyone knows how to ask for, donations and things like that. But even for someone like me who does this for a living, it can sometimes be uncomfortable. So we're going to focus on a few different concepts here that will make it easy for you to make an effective ask and hopefully have to ask just once for what you need instead of asking multiple times. So when making your ask, there are a few factors to take into consideration. You're going to be asking yourself if you're making a one-time or recurring ask. You're going to include the theory of change. You're going to incorporate horizontal relationships, and you're also going to be as specific as possible. I recognize that a lot of this is jargon, but I will jump into it. So before I get into one-time versus recurring, I'm going to explain what recurring is. It's essentially asking someone to give repeatedly, whether that's on a monthly basis or, if you're approaching election day, on a weekly basis. And then you have the one-time ask, which is pretty self-explanatory, but each of these benefits your digital fundraising in a different way. A one-time ask is an ask where you can ask for a larger amount because someone is just signing up, or there's an urgent deadline, or there are priorities that are going around that are coming up that you need to fundraise around. So if I were to make a one-time ask, I would probably ask for $25, $40, etc. Now, a recurring ask is an ask that allows you to budget for long-term planning, which is especially important if you're running a club, running a caucus, so on and so forth. If you have a local office that you want to open, or if you want to run a mailing or voter registration program, a recurring program is going to be very crucial in making sure that you are on budget to get to where you need to go. And it also allows you to meet people where they are, because even if someone can't give you $40 right then and there, maybe they can give you $10 over the course of 4 months. So you still get the $40, but you're also lowering the barrier to entry so that more people can give. Okay. And then you have the theory of change. So this is essentially jargon that means that your ask should clearly explain why exactly that person's donation is going to benefit a shared goal. So for me, when I was a field organizer doing one-on-ones with complete strangers in a community that I had never visited before in my life, it was very, very hard for me at first to connect with folks. And then finally, my manager gave me this theory of change formula, which essentially was telling me to get to know the person across the table from me, ask them why they are interested in engaging with the campaign or the work that's happening, and then from there, ask them to support that shared goal that we have. So I was asking people to open their homes up to dozens of strangers for a phone bank, and I had to sell it to them. So I essentially said, hosting a phone bank is going to be really important for the campaign because it'll allow us to clean our voter list before GOTV. Now, not glamorous at all, but it gets to the point and it shows people why exactly something that seems small and insignificant actually builds towards a larger shared vision. And that's all the theory of change is. So here's an example that our training team came up with. I don't know if it clicked. Yes. Okay. So this example is, can you make a $20 donation today so we can buy food supplies to provide free lunches in after school programs for low income families? It's a pretty long ask, but essentially the X refers to an action, the Y refers to the direct impact or result of the action, and the Z refers to the overarching goal of that action. If you have any questions about this, feel free to just drop it in the Q&A. I had a lot of questions after the fourth time I was trained on this, so no worries if that's you. The next thing that I want to talk about is horizontal versus vertical relationships. This is also a concept that is relatively new to me, but once it was explained, I pretty much understood. And the concept is basically saying that if you are hoping to bring people into your work, it is easier to do that if you are establishing yourself as a peer rather than an authority figure, right? So for me, when I go home for Thanksgiving, I will ask my younger brother to help me do the dishes because I would like to watch a movie with him and I consider him to be, someone I want to spend time with. He's my peer, et cetera, et cetera. I don't just boss him around because he doesn't respond to that. Not to say that that's how donors are, but in general, folks are more likely to respond if they feel like they have an equal stake in the work. And it's easier to help folks feel that way and help welcome them into the fold if you're saying specifically that, yes, we do have a shared stake in this work and we cannot do this work without you. That's how you bring people in rather than saying, you should chip in. Instead of creating like a transactional relationship, you're creating a relationship where folks feel able to engage and connect and sustain that relationship, if that makes sense. The other thing that I want to note here as well is we talked a little bit about the different concepts. So I want to make sure that we hone in on how important it is to be specific. So in the one-time ask versus recurring ask part of this, what I really like about this is you're naming a specific dollar amount. When it comes to bringing donors into the fold, the last thing you want to do is create confusion, right? If you say, can you donate? Then people are questioning you on the amount and when they should donate. Should they donate $200? Should they donate $2,000? Are you expecting a $5 donation? it's better to give that amount. Hopefully you're not saying $2,000 because that's a lot of money, but it's better to give a specific dollar amount and eliminate that guesswork, and then your donor can decide whether they want to give more than that. And then in terms of when to give, it is better to tell folks give right now or give in the next 2 days or give before the end of quarter rather than saying, can you give? Because if folks decide to give on November 9th, then you didn't have that money for election day, right? So just make sure you're being very specific in your language about timing and amount, and also about frequency. Okie doke, moving forward. Okay, so let's talk about ActBlue's tools and services. This is where we're going to be getting into strategy. So I'm just going to go over 4 different kinds of tools that we offer. The first is going to be contribution forms and branding, which I really love to talk about. Then we're going to talk about embedded videos. Then we'll do mobile optimization, which I geek out about every single day. And then we'll talk about analytics. So contribution forms. If you set up on ActBlue during the course of the pandemic, then chances are you've been using your ActBlue account to collect members' dues. And that is a totally great way to use ActBlue. I remember before the pandemic when I would go into rural areas and ask folks how they were collecting dues, they would say that they would pass jars or hats and things around. And my question was, well, what if someone's not at that meeting? Or what if someone doesn't have cash? I never carry cash on me. So having a digital way for people to give is really, really helpful, even and especially when it comes to members' dues. But the other different ways that you can use your contribution forms are plentiful. You can use your contribution form as a general way to collect donations. Wow, my brain just went out to collect donations, especially if there's something going on in the news cycle that directly impacts your community. Again, I work specifically with Southern Campaign, so I'm no stranger to the climate crisis and the anti-abortion laws and all of these things. And a lot of times when I'm doing my work, I'll get text messages from friends and emails from different county chairs about what they can do in order to help, push their cause. And I always say create a contribution form that is directly related to that specific topic. So when Alabama was dealing with the abortion ban a few years ago, I created a specific form for reproductive rights. And through that form, I could track how many people in their network were actually connecting on that issue. So it's really great for tracking as well. If you have events coming up or even in-person fundraisers, you can create an event form on ActBlue and collect donations that way, especially if you're doing a ticketed event. And the one thing that I want to hammer in on here is if you are creating a contribution form, I highly recommend that you take time to customize our branding. Your branding is essentially just going to be your logo, whatever colors your club uses, and also the messaging that you want on the form so that when people land there, it's not just like donate to blah blah club and then the contribution amounts. You're going to want a little bit of messaging to show folks that one, not only do you appreciate them engaging with your work, but two, this is how their donation is going to make an impact. I say this because a lot of times folks will sign up for ActBlue and they are in a rush to get started fundraising, which I definitely understand, but I always offer to create their brandings for them because you want your fundraising form to be associated with your club. You want it to be recognizable. You want it to be super aligned. The other note on this, I told you, I love talking about this stuff. The other note on this is if you are going to go with a branding, which again, I highly recommend, make sure that it's consistent across platforms, right? If your club's logos colors are blue and red, then don't have a purple and yellow logo on your form. I have yet another example. I've been here for so long. I have yet another example of me going down to Texas and I saw one of my candidates' flyers and I was like, that name looks so familiar. But the flyer was purple and yellow. And then I went to their ActBlue page and their logo was blue and red, and then I went to their website, it was just like blue and green or something like that. And it's kind of like, yes, we understand that we all like different colors, but you want to make sure that everything's consistent so that your branding is easily recognizable. And it might just seem like a tiny little thing to make note of, but trust me, it's very easy to spot if it's not consistent. So here's an example of the Tennessee Dems branding. If you are someone who's really interested in having like a larger photo as a background, that's something that Jose can definitely help you with. When you're doing your branding, make sure that you're also taking care of your social share. So if you share your link often on social media, your social share is just the image and the text that shows up. This is already customized, but if you are just starting out and you haven't actually added anything to it, it's just going to be a template. So I recommend just taking the extra 5 minutes to do that. Next are embedded videos. So this is something that we were able to roll out, I believe, in 2020. And it was a highly requested feature because we had a lot of folks on the platform who wanted to do virtual town halls, or they wanted to do Q&As, or they wanted to do a pancake breakfast, which is a real example, by the way, and invite people. So embedded videos are great because you can either embed a pre-recorded video or you could embed a live video. So this is a great way for people to donate because they can take a look at the video and just donate right then and there instead of navigating to a completely different form in order to do that. Mobile optimization. So this is basically a huge phrase that means that our forms work really well on mobile devices. So if you're like me, you've probably been online shopping recently, especially with the holidays approaching. And I'm sure you've noticed the different websites where you've had to pinch and zoom to get to whatever item or to get to the checkout queue. So with ActBlue, we understand donor behavior and we understand that the last thing people want to do is struggle when it comes to donating, which is why all of our forms are tested across mobile devices. Whenever I'm creating a new branding for one of my campaigns or organizations, I'll test on my phone and my iPad to just make sure that everything looks good and is functioning correctly. The other note with mobile optimization is this also includes our like digital wallet options. So whether that's Apple Pay or PayPal or what have you, people can give in a way that is convenient for them. And the other thing too is if you're organizing in rural areas and you're dealing with broadband access issues, if your supporters are going to your form to donate and they click on the button and somehow the internet cuts out, as soon as they connect again, that donation will go through. So you don't have to worry about losing donations that way. This was something I found out about just this year. So I'm always learning new things. The other thing I wanted to share with contribution forms is we have Spanish language contribution forms. If you have a lot of Spanish language speakers in your community who haven't been able to give before, with a simple click of a button, you can change all of the template language, the language that comes with your form, into Spanish. Now, anything beyond that, I can't help you. I don't speak Spanish. My greatest shame as a Californian. However, if you need help, I'm sure that a member of our team is happy to help with that. Awesome. Okay, so analytics. This is something that I really, really want to emphasize, especially because, like I said, I'm not a huge numbers person. The reason that I've really come to love ActBlue is it's really easy for you to figure out how exactly you're doing fundraising wise, right? As soon as you sign in, you get a snapshot of how you've been doing for the week. And then you can essentially change that to look at your fundraising for the last month, the last quarter, the last cycle, from the beginning of time, what have you. And from there, you can easily tell where your fundraising has dipped and where it has peaked, and then use that to inform your strategy moving forward. The other thing that I want to talk about when it comes to analytics is we also have a robust suite of reporting tools. So whenever someone is giving to your club, you collect their name, you collect their email, you collect all of the pertinent information that you need for reporting, and you don't have to separately go in and manually put that into a spreadsheet. You can just download that in your reporting center. If you have questions about how to do that, again, Jose is happy to help you. But you can pull reports for anything. You can pull reports just to see who was given in the past month, who was given in the past quarter. You can pull reports to see who was a recurring donor but is no longer one. The options are endless. So if you have any questions about that, or if you'd like a strategic eye to go over some of your analytics, Jose is a wizard at all of those things. So feel free to reach out to him for that. So another deep breath. If you don't have an ActBlue account, it's very easy to sign up. You can just go to our website, which is actblue.com, and click on the blue sign up button at the top above the fold, or the orange button that is a little further down on the page, but is still above the fold. And the process is pretty simple. It takes about 5 minutes to fill out the form, and then a member of our team will reach out to you in the next day or so with next steps. Another deep breath. So we're going to do a wrap up, and then I'm going to share some resources, and then we'll get into our Q&A. So I covered a lot today. We talked about small dollar donors a lot. We love them at ActBlue. We talked about digital fundraising and why it's important and how to adapt it into your current strategy. We did not talk about fundraising email specifically, but you will get that information soon. And we also talked about ActBlue's tools and resources. I, of course, neglected to mention probably the most important resource of all, which is the fact that you have folks like Jose and myself who are on the other end of the computer screen, happy to help you with whatever you're looking at. I get questions from how to sign in, to how to run an A/B test. So honestly, if you have any question that falls into that range, or even outside of it, feel free to email Jose or our support team, and we will put you on the right path. So speaking of Jose, here's his email. Hopefully you're writing it down or screenshotting it, but if not, it will be sent to you later on. You can also check out our blog. Everything that I talked about today, plus way more information about all of our tools and features and how to use them, are hosted on our blog, which is updated regularly. Whew. Questions. Wow, I'm now looking at the chat and it appears there are 25 comments. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can answer questions.
At this point, I don't see any questions that are being asked, but I'll give people a little bit of time. And in the interim, I want to remind people that Jose Gamboa's contact information is included on our Speakers Bureau list, which is on our dwcf.org website. And please look there if you can't find his contact information. I'll ask one more time. Are there any other questions or that you would like to have answered? I'll wait a few seconds.
Maureen, let me just jump in real quickly and remind everyone that the DWCF is a little different in the way our organization is structured. And so Jose had to work with ActBlue to put together some very specific instructions for our organization. We do have those instructions. We've sent them out once or twice last year. They are available, and we will send them out again on the heels of this for clubs that have not had the opportunity to enroll in ActBlue. It's very simple, it's very easy, but he has listed it out 1, 2, 3. It's very quick, and step by step, you'll get it done very easily. So we'll make sure that we get that information out to all of the club presidents and region chairs again within the next day.
Thank you, President Reedus. I now have a couple questions. Thank you. The first one is from Kathy Moon. As a donor, I can't determine how to delete an old credit card number. It defaults to that card every time. Others may have this same issue. Nisa?
That's a great question. If I remember correctly, you can delete that payment information under account settings. But honestly, if you want to shoot me an email, I'll type my email in the chat. I'm happy to take a look for you and follow up because I don't want to give you an answer that's incorrect. And also, if you ever have any questions about like payments or charges that don't make sense, feel free to email our support team. They're super helpful when it comes to those types of things.
Okay, the next question is from Sue Bowden, and she wants to know what the ActBlue fees are.
That's a great question. It depends on which type of account you have, whether it's a merchant or a Stripe account. We are slowly transitioning to all Stripe accounts, but essentially it's going to be 3.95% of each donation or transaction. So if you have specific questions about the fee breakdown, we have a lot of resources on our support page, or if you email Jose, he's happy to walk you through that and connect you with any of our reconciliation experts on that as well.
Okay, thank you, Nisa. The next question, and I will answer, is from Virginia Osborne. She wants to know how she can get a copy of this video. President Reedus will be putting this video on under the Democratic Women's Club of Florida YouTube channel. So you have to go to the YouTube and just search by Democratic Women's Club of Florida, and you will see our library, which is quite extensive of videos. So you might want to see other videos that we have there. And this one will be up there shortly, Virginia. The next one is Sheila Rout, who said, can more than one person view the account? We use it for dues renewal. As membership person, I can't see it.
So it sounds like this question is asking if multiple people can have access to the ActBlue dashboard. The answer is yes. I recommend that each person connects to the account via their own email address rather than just going through one email address. Makes it a lot easier if the password is being changed. But yeah, we can definitely add multiple admins to the account, and then you'll have access to all of the fundraising information. You'll be able to see who all paid their dues, who all needs to pay their dues, so on and so forth. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Diane Crummell, I think she had a question, but Diane, you need to put it in the Q&A tab. It disappeared when I tried to click on the chat, so please put it in the Q&A tab.
I do see it. I can read it out loud. It says, can the ActBlue owner of the account stop a recurring donation? If so, how? That's a really good question. I haven't had... So on the admin side, if you're someone who is running like the club's account, I don't think that you have that capability, just because we like to make sure that donors can actually do it themselves, and have that autonomy. If you are someone who accidentally made recurring donations, then you can go ahead and just do that yourself. But I would like to follow up with you on that, just because there are some administrators who have extra permissions. It's just one of those things where if I'm getting an email that's asking me to stop a recurring donation from a certain donor, I'm going to want to ask why, and if we have the consent of the donor. So that's why we like to leave it up to the donors to do.
Are there any other questions from anyone? I'm going to see, I think there might be a sixth question. Okay, so the donor really needs to do that, is
Yes.
what Diane Crummell was saying. Yes.
Yes, if the donor is requesting it, I would recommend that they email into our support team, or if you want, you can also email and connect them to Jose, and he's happy to handle all of that. Yeah, but yes, typically they would have to do it themselves.
Okay, that looks like that's the end of the questions. Thank you so much, Nisa. It was very informative. Really appreciate it. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Jean to administer our survey. And following after Jean, we will be speaking to President Reedus, and she has a few announcements. And then we'll come back to Jean again to get the results of the survey. Before you go, it'll only be a few minutes, so please stay on. Go ahead, Jean.
Thanks, Maureen. Yeah, so I'm gonna, it's a 2-question poll. So I'll give everybody a few seconds just to answer it. And if you can, quickly do it, we would appreciate it. Okay, so far we have about half, so I'll give it another minute and then I'll end it. Okay. Thank you, Maureen.
President Redis?
Nisa, I want to thank you so very much. That information was very, very thorough. It was on point. I know that you were concerned about having this small amount of time, but I think you got across a lot of really important information and set us up for a 2.0. But I think we got what we needed to know how to take off with this and to know what we need to pull from Jose later. So thank you. It was a phenomenal job. I thank you so very much. It was very, very informative.
Thank you for having me, and have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening and taking this time. I hope that you can kind of open up your imaginations, because there are so many ways that we can use ActBlue to fundraise. I thought it was very interesting. She mentioned even if you're looking at recurring donations just for an office space or something along those lines. And I know that some clubs are considering doing those things. So, just open up your mind. There are a lot of ways to use this. So thank you for thinking it important enough to be here. I want to thank the training committee for doing a phenomenal job this year. You have come up with 5 trainings this year, 6 trainings this year that have been absolutely wonderful. And we've gotten nothing but excellent feedback. And so I just want to thank you for what you've done, for what you've completed. It's been wonderful. Looking forward to next year. I hope everybody has their pens and papers out because the first training next year is going to be with our own legislative chair, Jean Siebenaller, and she's going to give us a training on legislative advocacy. That training is going to be January 22nd. More to come. We will send something out before the end of the year. We will send it out a couple of times so folks get it on their calendars and are prepared for it. I know Jean sent some information out today. We're going to be starting up a little early because session starts early this year. So lots going on. And we're just looking forward to jumping into 2023 and shaking off 2022 and hitting the ground running because our legislators need our help. And we are the folks that are going to get some good things done this year. So I want to kick this back over to Jean. Again, I want to thank you so very much for joining us this evening, and have a good night. Jean?
Yeah. So just sharing some of the results, we have a lot of great information that we could use going forward. So just want to thank everybody for putting in their opinions.
Very, very good.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.